I didn't mention that I was a bit naughty because from Tel Aviv on the way to Czechoslovakia, I dropped into an island called Kos, which is in the Greek islands, because it always fascinated me that Hippocrates had been the father of medicine, and we knew nothing about him at all, except that he lived about 500 BC or something. And so I hired a motorbike and went out to the teaching temples of Hippocrates on Kos. And these temples were still there with the spas and the running water. There were temples with mosaic tiles on the floor that were absolutely beautiful, and there were some that had broken up. Some had been absolutely ravaged. They no longer were feasible as a room. And I was naughty, and I picked up some of these mosaic tiles that had been carved in the year 500 BC, brought them home to New Zealand, and my stepfather, who was a magnificent man on wood, inset them into a shield, and that's how the Hippocrates shield came about. But it was magnificent to think that they had been formed the year 500 BC, and we had one in the School of Physiotherapy in Auckland as a shield. But I was naughty. I shouldn't have taken them away. But I mean, it was just some of the floors were still beautiful. Some of the floors had broken up. Okay, in 1988 I was asked to be a delegate at the WCPT meeting in London. We did that, and it was in London that New Zealand standards of training for manual therapy were approved by IFOMT, so that we were fully admitted as a full, by standards, country to IFOMT. And subsequently, now this is personal, nothing much to do with physiotherapy, but I was lucky to be invited to be the honoured guest speaker at the Japanese Physiotherapy Association in 1993. And they wanted to know what the impact of manual therapy was on physiotherapy. And as a result of that, the Japanese became quite interested in manual therapy and wanted to become a full member by standard of IFOMT. They also invited me to do a 6-day course at Oita University, and we did that on extremity work. We didn't do any spinal work because they were not au fait with spinal movements and manual therapy. Just by the way, it was quite fascinating because there must have been about 30 or 40 students at this university. All the men sat on one side, all the girls sat on the other side. They had their own divisions. And everything I said had to be translated. And then a question would come, it'd have to be translated to me, and I'd have to translate it, give it to the translator, and so it would go. Well, anyway, it was good while we were on the finger, but when we started to come to the shoulder, we had to say to the girls, you'll have to take your blouse off, and boys, you'll have to take your shirt off. Well, that was horror for Japanese at that stage. They had their segregations. Well, I will say that by the time we finished the end of the 6 days, because I was saying, come on, guys, you've got to be able to treat a girl. You've got to be able to lay your hands on a man. You can't just treat women when someone's in trouble out there in the big world. So by the time we'd finished, the girls were running around in their bras and knickers, and the boys were running around in their knickers, and they were all treating each other. It was wonderful to see. It was great. Just a mixing of physiotherapists, boys and girls, and they loved manual therapy. And since then, Japan's gone from strength to strength. Had all sorts of people. 1995, I did a similar thing. I did a 1-day course in Fiji. 1996, I was made an honorary life member of the New Zealand Society of Physiotherapists, and that's that photo that you saw of Stanley I was also made an honorary life member of New Zealand Manipulative Therapy Association, having been secretary for 100 years. Well, it just meant I didn't have to pay a sub.
Yeah.
It used to stick in Stanley's gob that he was a specially mentioned member of the New Zealand Society, but he wasn't an honorary member. He's a fellow, but fellows still have to pay a sub. Honorary life members don't pay a sub, so he's always said to me, "Oh, you were spoiled." Then I was very fortunate in the work that I'd been doing, not so much in physiotherapy, but also work outside physiotherapy was recognised. And my name was put forward for a Queen's Honour. And the Queen honoured me in 1997 with the New Zealand Order of Merit. And we went to Government House, and on behalf of the Queen we were given an Order of Merit. My wife was with me. She looked absolutely beautiful.